Welcome to Sliders and Wings, a podcast about the TV show Sliders
and the TV show Wings
and all the other forgotten TV shows of the 90s.
I'm Valerie Temple.
And I'm Rachel Cox. Welcome to Sliders. Hello, Val. How are you?
Great. And also welcome to Wings, Sliders and Wings. You can't forget about Wings. No, everyone else has on the planet has forgotten about Wings, so it's okay.
Well, the email is slidersandwings@gmail.com, but I made the graphic sliders
in wing. Yeah, it's confusing.
Because it felt too formal to write and. Okay, so I just have two things to mention from last week when we did Father Dowling Mysteries. One is that the people in black that my son was seeing on the street, yes, were women in burqas.
Yes,
that was what you thought. In hindsight, seems obvious, but I did not put it together.
Felt weird about guessing that. I was like, I don't want to. Maybe that was the first thing I thought of, though. So
well, yeah. So it turns out that trying to figure out what he was talking about was the easy part, and then trying to explain to him what a burqa was the harder part. And then my other thing was that I was talking trash about Jessica Fletcher last week from Murder, She Wrote. So I understand that there is an archetype of a lone, solitary mystery solver who is cold and icy and doesn't have a lot of human attachment, like Sam Spade or something. Another example is Columbo. I guess I feel that in this regard, Jessica Fletcher doesn't have anything. What's the word?
Like a hook?
Yeah. So Columbo was funny. Right? Yeah. I mean, he was funny. She doesn't have anything that draws you in to make up for that archetype.
And Monk is like OCD, that's his personality trait that you hook into. And it's very easy to understand. Okay, this is where this detective is coming from. And also maybe because they have this weird personality trait that might help them in their detective work.
Yeah, exactly. So
she does not
I just want to make sure that I wasn't sexist. So maybe I've internalized misogyny and I just cannot accept a lone, cold female sleuth.
That Murder, She Wrote was ridiculous. I was, after we were talking about it, it made me remember an episode of that show I watched where a congressman dies or something, like a congressman from Maine, either dies or steps down, and they tap Jessica to fill in for him because, she's uniquely qualified as a mystery writer. It doesn't seem
out of the realm of possibility, though.
Right.
These
days, I guess, but in the 80s. I just don't know. So.
Do you have any housekeeping?
I do not.
Okay, so we can.
I'm perfect at all times.
If you say something you don't like, you just edit it out.
I just edit it out. Yeah, that's exactly it. I have that power.
Okay, so our special guest is Eric Hutchinson, who's a friend of mine from high school, and he's also a musician, and he lives in New York, and he watched The Single Guy with us. Welcome, Eric.
Welcome.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here, and I watched all of these shows. Trying to get one was a little tough, actually. I think Single Guy was a second or third choice because you were like, we already watched that. And I went for Sliders and Wings, I believe. So
too slow.
I didn't anticipate that kind of enthusiasm.
And I was also excited because it occurred to me, Rachel, that I actually knew you when the show was on.
Uh-huh.
It's something. There's something connected to I knew you when I was watching this show as a 16-year-old or whatever. So we were excited to really dig in.
We were sitting 2 blocks away in our rooms watching the same show.
This show seems a little too boring for you, honestly, though. I would have you would have been watching Twin Peaks kind of or something.
I mean, I remember my memory of this show was just that Joey Slotkin and Ming-Na Wen were hilarious. I remember just laughing so hard, just thinking that it was just the funniest thing I'd ever seen. Or that they were the funniest thing I'd ever seen.
That's the only memory of it. Points for just casually mentioning Joey Slotkin.
I know, you're everyone knows who Joey Slotnick is.
At no point did I have to look up his name. I knew his name was Joey Slotkin.
Here's a fun thing. I see him in New York. Before the pandemic, I saw him at least quarterly in New York.
Really?
And I've always been I know who this guy is. He's from The Single Guy. He also has a really tiny part in A League of Their Own.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I was that's how I knew him before the show started.
But I would see him all the time, and I always want to say hi to him, and now I will, now that I know his name, which is Joey...
Slotnick.
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 I guess I'm not that great.
See, Rachel, you're so confident, and yet
Slotnick. Okay.
You don't want to do a housekeeping over this guy's name. So.
This show should be called Housekeeping.
Yeah, exactly.
Slot something. One of the first celebrities I ever saw when I visited New York was John Fugelsang, and then every once in a while.
Does that count?
Who's John Fugelsang?
He was a VH1. He was a VH1 VJ.
Oh, I didn't have cable.
I mean, the name is so.
VH1 god.
Yeah,
I guess.
But he's on Twitter, and like I'll see him on Twitter sometime.
Didn't you also see Anthony Kiedis, and you had a picture of him from like 30 feet away and you had to draw on the picture that here he was.
It's easy to see celebrities when you're just standing outside the David Letterman entrance with your parents.
That is a little bit cheating.
On that particular day, first visit to New York, we weren't even going to go to the show. We were just hanging around in the alley, and the musical guest was it was Red Hot Chili Peppers. So I saw Anthony Kiedis, took a photo, and then like it's the back of his head. So I would circle it and say Anthony Kiedis and show it to everyone. And then the other guest was Tony Randall, which I had to explain to me who was Tony Randall.
Tony Randall's very exciting for a teen.
As I recall, you had a better picture of Tony Randall. I think you might have had even a face picture of Tony Randall. And not
You're like, I care less about him, but the picture is better. So here you go. The celebrity I saw, the first celebrity I saw on my first trip to New York was Woody Allen.
Wow.
Yeah. Isn't that nuts? Like
that's a top 10 New Yorker right there.
Was he hotter in person?
Yeah, that's basically like a bingo card, like New York celebrity, like check. And we were walking down the street trying to get to like some store or something, and we ran into like a production, and my friend was like, "Oh, it's Law and Order again!" Like, and and they were trying to figure out if we should wait or go around, and then we like hear all these people be like, "Cut, cut, 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 cut," and then Woody Allen walks right by. Wow. And then a guy in an I Love New York t-shirt like goes up to him and he's like tries to shake his hand. And I was like, Woody Allen makes whole movies about why he doesn't like you. Stop doing that.
Well, this is a perfect segue into a new segment I'm introducing called What Are You Watching?
Okay.
And what I watching is
What I watching
is Pretend It's a City. And it's basically Martin Scorsese recording Fran Lebowitz kvetching.
Yes.
It's on Netflix. Greg and I were laughing so hard. Like I was laughing so hard that I just froze my face into a smile in preparation for the next laugh. I mean, she's really, she's known as like a bon vivant or a writer, but she's really a comedian. Like it was just joke. And I've never wanted to be an old person so much. I was like, why can't I be her?
You're closer than you think, Rachel.
You're getting there. It's like an old New Yorker. No,
I shave my gray sideburns rather than deal with having gray hair.
That's cool. That's hip.
But I mean, she lives on her own. She has lots of books. She can do whatever she wants. She just does occasional speaking engagements, and she lives in New York. And I
can see you have lots of books behind you. You're halfway there.
These are Greg's books, unfortunately.
You'll get him in the divorce, and then you'll live alone with a lot of books. I think you should aim higher, honestly.
Here's my Jodi Picoult library. Those are the books I'm reading. It's really good.
I watched a bunch of that as well, and
you didn't like rush through it.
She kind of, I have a hard time with her sometimes. It's like kind of exhausting after a while because she is so like on sort of, like my preferred New York person is Nora Ephron if I want my classic New York take. So she's a little kinder, I guess. But so I don't know if you know this. Fran is she used to be a writer mainly, and then she got like insane writer's block and just stopped doing it and was like, oh, I can get these ideas out much faster if I just say them instead of write them all.
Yeah, she's just like a professional talker now.
Yes, right.
She's
a Bon Mott factory.
Right.
She should be on The View, honestly.
Oh, that would be incredible. But
I feel like the show is everything she has to say distilled into like 3 hours. I don't think there's anything else.
Yeah, I bet she's the kind of person that if you see her a couple times a week, she repeats her bits a lot,
Well, she's covering the past 40 years.
Yeah.
I think we're caught up. This one.
She's
You've got
gonna have a hard
everything.
time doing another one. Yeah.
The other thing I watched was The Flight Attendant on HBO Max. HBO Max has a
That's
lot
on
of
my
good stuff.
list.
Haley Cuoco looks out of place when she's not carrying a teacup poodle or some sort of small dog. You're just like, her hands look empty. Like, she just looks like someone that should be carrying a small dog.
Okay.
That'd
Did she
be
carry
like-
a small dog on Big Bang Theory?
I don't think so, but she
Her
does have
personality
like
is so small dog.
it's like a Legally Blonde type of
Yes. So I would say that
personality
the show
figure.
is the show's pretty fun, except that Haley Cuoco is the lead and she's in it like 99% of the screen time is her, and then like 78% of the screen time is Zosha Mamet. So it's kind of like, I don't like
not
it.
for you, not the actresses for you.
But then
it
it's
seems
got
like
Rosie Perez, who's good, and then it's got Michelle Gomez, who's also a really good actress. So it's got these two other ones that are really good.
Yeah.
It's a mixed bag, but I would recommend it, I guess.
I have a list of things that are new that I'm going to get to once I finish watching ER, which is what I've been doing.
What's your ETA on that?
I have 8 episodes left, so I'm very close.
Of the whole show?
Of the whole show, yeah. Which is
Wow.
15 seasons long.
Now, is it pretty? I mean, I've never really watched it. Is it really formulaic?
I mean,
Surprise you?
it definitely surprises you. There's wild stuff that happens all the time, like on the regular on that show, where you're just like taken aback. People are killed left and right. I mean, there's murders, there's mayhem, there's helicopter accidents.
Murders?
Yes, at one point, my husband and I were like, okay, how many of these cast members have a murder in their background at this point? And there was like 3.
Is
Like
Noah Wiley still
manslaughters.
on it at the end?
No, he leaves in like season 10. My husband and I basically have taken to calling the show Hospital because by season 15, the cast there is not one original cast member left.
Right.
So it is a wildly different mix of people. So it's like a completely different show, but they're still doing the ER thing.
You should go straight to Grey's Anatomy. Don't even stop. Don't even pass go. Just go straight into it.
I'm going to. I promised Emily Gould that I was going to start the Nick. The Nick.
Nick is excellent.
Yeah,
Really.
and which is like a forgotten 2000
HBO,
show.
right?
Yeah.
It was actually Cinemax,
That's right. That's what she
which
said.
is why nobody's seen it.
Right. It was on for like 2 seasons, and her and Keith were like obsessed with it. And
Well, it's got Clive Owen, right?
that's right.
Yeah.
And
Okay, I'll
it,
watch that.
It's a movie, pretty much. It's got
Yeah.
a really high level of, I don't know, it's really good.
and
really
it's
weird.
also like it's like about the medical field, so it's like basically like ye old hospital, ye old ER. So I'm looking forward.
That's what the working title was, Ye Old ER.
Ye old ER,
Or
yeah.
Ye-R.
Year.
Okay, so there's a show that almost nobody knows about that I've watched. It's got 2 seasons. It's on HBO Max. It was originally on TBS or TNT or something, but it's really, really good. It's called Miracle Workers. Have either of you seen it? Daniel Radcliffe is in it.
I'm familiar with it.
He's
It's
very,
written by
very
Simon
funny.
Rich.
He's very, very funny. And the first season is set in the afterlife, and Steve Buscemi plays God, and Daniel Radcliffe plays like an angel, and they are in like the miracle department or something. And it's very goofy. It's very quick. It's very funny. And then the second season, they just take the entire cast and they put them in the Middle Ages. And it's just a completely different story. And Steve Buscemi is a guy who shovels shit, and his name is like John Shit Shoveler.
So it's like kind of like a
So
Black
funny.
Adder type of thing.
Very much.
Okay.
But there's a whole subplot where there's a doctor who is just like making it up and doesn't even know what he's doing. And he's just like, but when HBO Max launched, I thought Cinemax was involved. Like HBO Max. I was like, oh, are they merging with Cinemax?
Cinemax.
Finally, all my
sense.
favorite Cinemax shows are available.
Yeah.
Red Shoe Diaries. Was that HBO or is that Cinemax?
I think it was.
That's on our list, isn't it?
Yeah, it is on our list.
I didn't realize that was on there. I would have chosen that.
You can come back.
You can come back, definitely.
Val will have to burn you an episode of something and mail it to your house.
Yeah, because I do have it on DVD. So.
Because one of our friends really
cool.
wants to do Sisters, and Val has it on DVD, and we've got to figure out how to get it to him so we can all watch it.
Yeah, because there's some things out there that are impossible to find. So.
Val and I share a Hulu account, or rather, I let you use my account.
That's right.
And every time I've logged in for the past 3 years, it's been like, next up, the next episode of ER. I'm like, who is watching ER? It's been you.
It's totally screwed up your algorithms. It's just like, you might like Grey's Anatomy.
It hasn't been 3 years. It's been I think it's been like the full quarantine has been ER. So
I have seen it on there a lot without thinking about it.
It's kept me going.
Okay, wait. I want to have one question for Eric before we get into the show, which is tell us on a scale of 1 to 10, how much of a TV nerd were you in high school? You were out doing things.
I guess I don't know. How do you quantify that? I watched a lot of television in high school, and I think I knew about every show. I used to read the TV guide, like, you know, for fun. And I was, even if I wasn't watching
wait, do you
the show,
mean the TV guide or do you mean the Washington Post TV?
I mean the TV guide that came in the Washington Post. We weren't millionaires. We're not going to go out and buy a separate TV guide.
No.
Isn't that crazy? They used to print that, you know, it'd be like, you have to explain to your kids, like, okay, they used to put it in the newspaper. That's how you knew if there was a movie or a TV show going on.
I think it was not kind that for like people with not all that extra cash to get a subscription.
Yeah, well, it's for the articles, you know, the articles, the hard-hitting interviews.
The cheers and jeers and things like that.
But I mean, to answer your question, I guess, especially thinking about it now, like, there was like 4 channels. Like, I guess I knew about most of the stuff.
Right.
Even if I didn't watch all of it. But thinking about it, I did watch a lot of television. And it was only on from like 7 to 11. It wasn't that hard to get to, you know. Or you had your Ren and Stimpy, I guess. I don't know. I
think if you were only talking about basic networks, then you could basically keep tabs on every show by just tuning in occasionally, and you could basically see every show if you didn't need to commit to watching every single episode. But like, you could have seen every show, I guess.
Yeah, watching every episode was almost impossible except for reruns, really. I mean, most of the shows that I love really solidified during reruns.
I mean, I don't know what you and I would have been talking about in high school if not Seinfeld. So, all right, The Single Guy.
The Single Guy. Yes.
Eric, did you watch The Single Guy?
I watched The Single Guy.
Okay. This is what I have on it. While the series was favored enough by NBC to earn a time slot in its coveted must-see TV Thursday night lineup, it ultimately failed to generate enthusiasm with critics and viewers. It was largely written off as one in a long line of singles in the city sitcoms that emerged in the mid-90s following the success of Seinfeld. Many of that hit show's calling cards were emulated in The Single Guy, from the neurotic best friend to its main character's rotating cast of flawed girlfriends. And then they hung out in a coffee shop called the Bagel Cafe.
Which...
you get your own coffee?
The Bagel Cafe, okay, like, Central Perk is a funny part. The Bagel Cafe is just like, it seems very first draft to me. Like, they hang out at a cafe, and we're in New York. What do New Yorkers like? Bagels, you know?
Well, the Seinfeld diner was just called, like, the diner.
The diner in Seinfeld is almost, it's not even a location to me, because it's almost, you know, a means to an end. Like, it's just like they're in this tight booth and they're just having these conversations at each other. It's you barely get to see like the environment, whereas like in Friends and in The Single Guy, it's much more open, and there's like, you know, a regular cast member is, you know, another character they interact with, and there's all sorts of like set dressing and things like that. But like in Seinfeld, it's basically like, here's a place where they can just talk to each other.
The show ended with Jonathan, the character's name is played by Jonathan Silverman, but his name is Jonathan Elliott in the show. And in the end of the season, he gets married, thus ending his single status.
That's
Ultimately, it was one of the highest rated shows to ever get canceled.
Right.
So far, this is the 4th show we've ever covered. And the thing that all the shows have in common is that they were just like shuffled around the time slots and the days. So I guess the question is like, did they fail because they were shuffled around, or did they get shuffled around because they were failing, or is it kind of like a circular chicken and the egg thing?
I mean, I think in this case, this show had everything going for it, and it just didn't distinguish itself enough. It just wasn't special enough to me. I mean, you know, it was created by Brad Hall, who's Julia Louis Dreyfus's husband.
Right.
Oh, well, that's spoiling because in the very end of the pilot,
Yes.
the voicemail on his phone was Julia Louis Dreyfus.
That's right.
Really?
See if you guys could tell. I didn't
know that.
Well, I could just tell it was her. I'm very good at voiceover attribution.
So am I, yeah.
It's not a spin-off, but it takes place in the Friends universe because Ross Geller appeared on the show.
Yes.
Oh, the old Friends universe. It's up there with Marvel.
Well, Eric, I don't think you heard our Wings episode, but Wings takes place in the same universe as Cheers.
That's right.
Did you know that?
No, I didn't. I mean, I just sort of assume most sitcoms take place in the same universe. Like, if they're in New York City, it's like you should be able to run into each other.
Well, I think at least for like the must-see TV Thursday night lineup, they would do like crossover episodes sometimes.
Definitely.
So like they would like interact with each other, and like there would be,
you know, these were ratings boosts, right?
Yeah, or it was like sweeps or something special. And it was.
But can you imagine loving Friends so much and not liking Single Guy, and then you see a promo that David Schwimmer is going to be on Single Guy for like a minute, and go, "I'll watch it. I just want to watch it." And then
it makes sense because I think it was on after Friends, before Seinfeld. I mean, Correct. Truly the most coveted slot.
It's a half an hour. It's a half an hour. People have that time. You know, they're going to be switching back anyway, so they're like, why not? You know, I don't know if you remember the like Thursday night, there was like a one where there was a blackout. Do you remember this?
Yeah,
where, like there was
all had blackouts,
and like every single show was like dealing with a blackout during this one.
That's good programming. That's just good programming.
You're like, and then like it carries you over. It's like a way to trick people into.
Yeah, right.
Like, watching everything.
It was now it's just when you're watching Netflix and you go to watch the credits and it just starts you on to the next show already.
It's exactly that.
That was that back then. It was like, oh, you're still watching Friends. No, you're not. You're watching The Single Guy.
Yeah, they like slide it right in. It's almost like, there was no consent here.
But I was fully prepared because I actually remembered really liking The Single Guy, and I went into watching this being fully prepared to be like, this is going to be dumb. And I have to say, I really enjoyed myself watching it.
He's very likable.
Very likable. But
he's more likable than David Schwimmer.
I think that's the problem with the show, maybe, is there's not really any conflict. He's just super likable and super, he goes along with everything, and he just happens to be single, so like that's kind of the gig.
I have to say, to me, being single is not that interesting of a trait.
Right.
Like,
well,
everyone else
concept
is
of the show, but the concept of the show is this guy's 30 and he's just out of place in the world because all of his friends are married, and that's just hilarious.
Which
I find it hard to believe that was even true in 1995.
Yeah.
And why did Brad Hall develop this show? Because he'd been married to Julie Dreyfus forever. So like, where is this experience coming from?
I don't know. Yeah, you know, he also wrote Bye Bye Love. Do you remember that movie with Paul Reiser?
I saw the theaters. Yes, I do.
Yeah.
Paul Reiser. Who's the trio in that one?
Matthew Modine, Paul Reiser. Oh, I want to say Stu Gutenberg, but that's kind of a duplicate, right? You don't need a Reiser and a Gutenberg in the same movie.
No, it's like Randy Quaid or something.
Oh, I bet it. Yes. That's what got me really into the Everly Brothers.
I love.
I mean, if that doesn't get you into what is really, you know.
But like, do you remember, like, in Bye Bye Love, like, one of the main locations in that movie was a McDonald's?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then I think it was sponsored.
Randy Quaid, yeah, it was Randy Quaid.
Yeah, because it was like, these are divorced guys, and that's like the McDonald's is the neutral zone where they pick up and drop off their kids for custody.
Oh yeah, it's like a whole like divorce.
And there's a playground, you get your lunch. But I also think truly that McDonald's might have sponsored the movie.
No, it really does look like that, and it's kind of the same kind of humor where it's like it's funny, but it's kind of like not special enough.
Yeah, I wouldn't say Single Guy was funny per se. I feel like it's just kind of pleasant. There's not a lot of like.
I agree with you. Like I feel like it's extremely just fine.
But
you know,
not many pilots are going to have real belly laughs.
Yeah, but I
You
watched
really have to get
two
into
and a
the
half
program.
episodes. You recommended a second episode I could watch, and then from there, YouTube gave me a third one where Davy Jones
Serving,
from the Monkees comes over for
that's right.
Thanksgiving dinner.
YouTube served me the same thing. They were like, we know what you want.
Wait, but the
So,
second one we saw had Maureen McCormick in it, so they were just
Yes.
totally doing nostalgia programming.
They even had a callback on the Davy Jones episode about how he'll never get to date Marsha Brady.
wow.
Yeah. The
Okay, but
single
in the
guy universe
but in the world
is
of
real.
in the world of the Brady Bunch, Marsha Brady is the president of the Davy Jones fan club. So like in that
Yes.
universe, she's a child and he's an adult.
Hmm.
I mean, I guess he could have just been 5 years older than her.
Yeah. I
The
think
Brady
that's
Bunch
about
was
right.
was having a revival in the 90s, so this is all related.
It
Right.
was. And actually, I thought Maureen, I don't know if the listeners have only watched the pilot, but the Maureen McCormick episode was quite good. And she, I thought, really should have had her own sitcom. She was quite sitcom-y, I thought.
She looks so much like Christine
Taylor,
Taylor,
who
who played her in the Brady,
Brady
Bunch
Bunch
movies.
movie. Yeah.
I remember when the movie
I mean,
came
she's
out,
not
I
as
was
funny
like,
as
how did they
Christine
get Marsha to play herself? Truly,
No,
I was so confused.
It like they look identical to me, like identical, and it was kind of like sort of messing with me to see Marsha Brady with like this extremely 90s like sort of Ally McBeal look to her.
She
That
was
I was
very
like,
Ally.
Yeah, very.
I think it was confusing to me watching it yesterday, and it was confusing to me watching it in the 90s because I was born in 1980, but I watched the Brady Bunch in the 80s when it was on in reruns. Not sure of when that was. Like, don't get me started on Happy Days. That's so confusing. That was like set in the 50s, but it was airing in the 80s. It was so confusing.
I just saw a meme that was saying that if the Wonder Years started, like, was airing now, it would be
I saw
about
the same thing.
2001. It was weird.
Whoa.
How would you even? But so when
Which is weird
when the
because
Wonder Years aired, the clothes were so unique.
Yeah.
So that is. But do you think that clothes don't change as fast as they used to?
No, I think if you were to do a 2001 show, it would look pretty different.
Yeah, you'd know. It'd be very like Britney Spears.
I think
like
I think it would be hard to do right though. I think it would be like you'd be like, wait a minute.
My wife is a costume designer, so that's all we do while we're watching television. Is she can't casually watch anything. She's watching something, going, that collar's too big.
Picking out the wrong stuff.
Yeah.
So in the pilot, it's a pretty loose plot. It's just that it just sets up the situation that the main character, who's played by Jonathan Silverman, who's most famous for being the star of Girls Just Want to Have Fun. Just kidding. He's from Weekend at Bernie's. Also in Girls Just Want to Have Fun.
Yeah,
he's famous because he grabbed a woman's chest in Girls Just Want to Have Fun and said
"Tune in Tokyo."
Tune in Tokyo.
That's,
But he was also in Weekend at Bernie's. But anyway, so Weekend at Bernie's was in 1989, and then Single Guy aired in 1995. He was
busy.
Really
if floundering.
If you look at his IMDb, he's been doing a ton of stuff.
Yeah, he's a working actor. I thought he was really good, and I think he's handsome in it. Like I said, I find him very likable. That's like it's sort of like Seinfeld in that way. It's like, oh, he's like a slightly more handsome Seinfeld, except he's not as funny as Seinfeld.
Yeah, and it's hard to. I mean, he's just not. He doesn't have like a distinct personality.
Yeah, he doesn't have any edge. He's just
he doesn't.
Like the pilot episode to me was confusing. Of like, wait, this is the plot? Like, okay, we got all these
and then
people
they made him a
watching the
writer. I mean, if you compare him even to Ross Geller from Friends, Ross had a lot of negative character traits that kind of balanced him out and made him interesting. Like he was really petty and he was really. Anyway, it was only the pilot, I guess, but you're right that I didn't see anything really distinguishing characteristics about the main character in either of the episodes that we watched.
No, it seemed very much like he's afraid of commitment. Is he afraid of commitment, or he just is unlucky in love?
But it didn't seem like either. It didn't seem like he was a loser, and it didn't seem like he was neurotic. It just seemed like, hey, I'm kind of, maybe he's asexual. He just seemed kind of fine, like not dating anyone. He was like, I kind of like my apartment. Like my life, I'm fine. Like Seinfeld was neurotic and like driving himself away from people and stuff.
Right. So then it was like weird because then they're kind of mushing in this like Seinfeldy like nitpickiness about a girl where you're like, like this girl is a name dropper, or this girl is emasculating me because she earns more money than I do or something,
Right.
you know?
Well, that was the second episode, right? So the first episode is just setting up the premise that he's single and his friends are obsessed with finding him someone and setting him up on dates.
Right.
I don't know if people set each other up on dates anymore, but that is so 90s to me that someone would surprise someone by showing up at their house and say, you know, on a blind date or something. I mean,
I really thought that blind dates would be like I think as like a kid, I was like preparing myself for the idea of having to go on a blind date. I was really like concerned. I was like, what would I do on a blind date? Because this is clearly something that will happen to me in the future, and I have to, you know, study for it basically. And it never happened.
Well, like you were also very worried about getting stuck in quicksand. How are you going to get out?
Yeah.
What if I said though? I mean, every you know, app dating date is a blind date pretty much.
Yes.
It's just with some extra texting beforehand, but they were kind of that, you know, it was just like, I'm gonna show up, I don't know what I'm gonna get.
But in the pilot he gets set up on a blind date, and I forgot that Ernest Borgnine was in this show, and that's like the weirdest thing.
How could you forget that?
Yeah, I didn't forget that, and I loved him back then, and I really enjoyed him this time around too.
Yeah, he plays
Jonathan's doorman who just hangs around and makes jokes.
And he's got a beautiful outfit. His uniform is really...
he's the doorman, and it's just a glorious, like, New York City doorman outfit. And he also, I mean, not unlike Father Dowling on Father Dowling Mysteries, he's never doing his actual job either, you know?
I mean, yeah, they're sort of making a joke that he doesn't do his job. But yeah, it's like... I enjoyed it. I thought it was a fun kind of person to get in the mix, to get like a little different point of view with everything.
Right.
In the Maureen McCormick episode, his whole thing goes off in a very different generational thing of all. But he's just kind of fun. I just found him enjoyable.
Yeah, he's like he's a fun grandpa, kind of. His first line of the whole series is, "I made paella."
Yeah.
Which really made me laugh.
And then I started thinking, is he Spanish? His name is Manny.
Right.
Are we to believe that he is Spanish? Because he says his grandmother's recipe.
I think we are to believe that he is Spanish.
He's Manuel?
Yeah, he's Manny Cordoba, I think is his character.
No way. Really? His last name is Cordoba?
Yeah. Manny Cordoba.
I mean, maybe he is from the King's Spain.
It just doesn't, you know. They're like, we got Ernest Borgnine. Let's just go with it.
Let's just leave the character the same. We don't have to change anything.
Right. But the other super 90s thing about the plot is that they're all getting together to watch a fight on pay-per-view.
Yes.
Yeah, and he's setting up pay-per-view.
Right. So
I didn't realize was that a thing? You had to like.
I thought that he had to like upgrade his cable so that he could order pay-per-view or something.
Something like that. Larry Miller, who I know is the dad from 10 Things I Hate About You.
I mean, I feel like a big get for a pilot is like, okay, we got somebody to really root the show. Is Larry Miller is the cable guy. There's gonna be some laughs from that for sure.
Which, I mean, I guess they were, but also it was just a little it was a little too cliche, because it's just like, he's the cable guy. They don't know he's in there for a while, right? He like comes out, and like they have this whole full conversation about like a beautiful woman that Joey Slotnick saw on the subway, and because he's married, he basically hit on this woman for Jonathan. He's like, yeah, she's gonna call you. And then as they're having this conversation, Larry Miller, the cable guy, like the toilet flushes, and he comes out of the bathroom, like zips up his pants, and then he's just like eating all of their food, and they're like, "Who are you?" And
it seems like it should have been an applause, like when he came out of the bathroom, like
you're overestimating how famous he is, Eric.
Yeah.
But then of course, like, he's the cable guy, and what is a funny thing that happens in the 90s with cable? You accidentally get porn.
But I was watching this scene because all these grown men were acting like they'd never seen porn before.
Yes.
Yeah, they're like, how could you watch this? You're a married man. I'm like,
and then it was like mid-90s. I mean, it wasn't as easy to get as it is now.
I guess, but they were fascinated by it.
Like,
they were
none of them had ever had sex. They were like 14-year-old virgins watching it.
Paying for this like boxing match, like a George Foreman boxing match, and like they're like keep flipping back to the porn because that is more enticing to them. It was just
Okay, here was my issue though. So we're meant to believe that Joey Slotnick,
mhm.
the whole time he knows that Jonathan Silverman is being set up on this date, even though Jonathan Silverman doesn't seem to remember that he is. So Joey's just going along with, okay, we're gonna watch the fight, even though
Right.
he knows that at some point he's gonna have to leave.
Yeah, there were some
It
like
was very confusing.
there was
He was
some
just kind of lazy.
there were some sloppy, lazy plot contrivances where I was like, I don't believe that at all. Because so their friend calls Janine, or it's a phone message. It's actually a voicemail
Voicemail.
message.
Talk about 90s
Because
stuff. The whole
there's
episode's around the voicemails.
yeah, there's a lot of voicemails. So it's just like, so we're learning a lot about him through these like messages he gets, you know, and we're like listening to this answering machine. It's like it's almost its own character. And then he gets this message from one of their friends, Janine, who's like, hey, remember you're coming over for dinner tonight with me and my husband. And he's like, oh, I forgot about it. I want to watch the game. And then Jonathan wants to just blow it off. And then Joey Slotnick is like, look, you have to go. She really wants you to like her husband. And then Jonathan's like, oh, okay, I'll go. I was like, that's not a convincing. Like,
Also, I thought on her voicemail she goes, "Hi, it's your best friend of all time. We've known each other forever. We're best friends. This is our backstory.
yeah,
We're both really good longtime friends. Aren't you coming over tonight?"
yeah, definitely. They're just
Played by Jessica Hecht, who played the lesbian Susan, or Susan's.
See, this is a problem for the Friends universe. Are we to imagine this is the
Right,
same person?
right.
I maybe wonder if she dropped out maybe later on.
She was also on. She was doesn't seem like she's on the rest. She wasn't in the second season. Does she?
I didn't remember
She's
her
not.
being in it at all.
Is she just in the pilot?
There's
I
a bit
just-
of a cast change in the second season.
Yeah, I'm assuming the first. So the second season was the episode we watched. That has the black guy with dreads.
Russell.
Was he in the first season?
I don't think so.
I don't know. 'Cause we didn't see the Bagel Cafe in the first season pilot, so I don't
Right.
know if he was there.
The Bagel Cafe.
The Bagel Cafe.
Honest-
It's just,
To be fair, it is a name that you would have for a place, but it's just a little boring.
it's so boring. It's extreme. Like, I'm
when we're
asleep
comparing it to
thinking about it.
Central Perk, I mean, that's a good
Central
joke.
Perk is
But there's a Wonder Years connection, which is Olivia d'Abo is the blind date who played
Right.
the older sister in Wonder Years. Okay,
But
so
then she joins the cast as a different character later.
in the second
I
season.
have to interrupt for a segment called Accent Corner. Okay, Olivia d'Abo is British, but she
Yes.
played an American in Wonder Years. I don't know what you'd call this accent. How would you describe the accent she's?
I thought she was Australian.
No, we thought she was doing an Australian
Yeah.
accent. Okay, it sounded to me like she was going on and on about her parents and Papa Hemingway, and she was a name dropper. That was her thing. That she was someone who had grown up in New York
Yeah,
and had an old
she's-
family and had
she's
all these
Jo-
connections, and that was her thing.
She's Jonathan's
I
blind
thought she was
date.
trying to do a snooty like Upper West Side accent.
Yeah. Oh,
or
yeah.
something
I
like
thought you
that.
meant in the second season where she has a separate accent.
Then
I thought she was Australian.
but then, to my surprise, jumping into the second season and watching an episode, oh, she's there again. She has the same name, Marie, but she lives next to Jonathan, and she's just in the friend group, and she's speaking in her regular British accent.
In the pilot episode, yeah, I think she's doing sort of like a Katharine Hepburn kind of, high society kind of.
Yeah.
Oh, and my grandpa, blah blah blah. I think that's what she was going for.
Yeah,
But-
she works for Time Magazine, and I think she's trying to be like, and using,
Another good 90s thing to be like, oh, she works for Time Magazine. That's how she meets all the bigwigs.
oh wow, yeah. But yeah,
I love that she made a Thin Man reference, though. Val, did you hear the
Yes.
Thin Man reference?
oh, of course I did.
That was
I was very happy about that. There were a couple references where I was like, who is this for besides me? Like who was like who
That might have been the show's problem.
yeah, I think so. Because it's like a weird, like tie-dyed mix of Friends and Seinfeld. So you've got these like Seinfeld-esque references in this like kind of frenzy, like sensibility.
Oh yes, let's get into Ming-Na Wen because
Yes,
I had a huge crush on her back in the '90s, and I found she was just great. And I feel like this was a star-making turn for her.
She was.
I want to see her do funny
excellent.
stuff again.
Yeah, she was excellent in this. She just, so we've talked about how, you know, on pilots people are like sort of turned up too high. I feel like Joey Slotnick was really high. Like there was just he was just like really like hitting everything. But she was sort of like a little bit more effortless and just like naturally really funny. I just love her.
And she's so 90s, but like very chic, and like she's got some great black leather jacket. She's got a great kind of hard haircut.
Yeah,
and I remember at the time thinking this as a kid, but also now, like, she seems too good for Sam. Like, what's this relationship all about? Other than they just met in like college and they just kind of stuck it out.
I mean,
together.
That's the reason for a lot of weird matchups, right? Like,
yeah, they don't have great chemistry together. Like in this, oh, I understand why you guys are hot for each other. They don't seem.
Yeah, but I will say they're kind of my favorite part of the
of
the show. I kind of want. They should have changed the show. If you're gonna shift the show, let's just go to Sam and Trudy.
Well, that's Mad About You.
Oh,
that's right. You got
Which
it.
was probably on before this one, right? Both episodes reference Hemingway, which I guess is like the only touchstone for writers.
Oh, he's a writer. Yeah,
he's a writer, like Hemingway. It was funny in the second episode we watched where he's dating Maureen McCormick's character, who I guess is a holdover from a previous episode, and they go out to eat, and he's acting really weird, and there's a miscommunication where he's like, he doesn't want to order drinks or all this stuff, and she thinks he's an alcoholic, but it's because he's poor.
Yeah.
Which
a pretty good bit.
It was a good bit.
But then she ends up hiring him as her assistant.
Yeah.
Well, the whole plot of the second one is that he kind of ends up being a kept man, and she's paying for everything. And they had, like, I have to say, a few interesting conversations with the whole group about male gender roles, female gender roles, paying, not paying, that stood the test of time. Like, nothing they said I thought was something that couldn't, be on TV today or like sounded out of place.
It was progressive. That's what this show was known for, was its progressive politics.
Its progressive attitude.
Well, Eric had an interracial marriage, and I can't think of any other interracial marriages.
It did. 90s. I mean, it had a non-white person on the show. 2 non-white people on the show. That's more than Friends. I also wanted to point out, I actually looked this up to make sure, but so this theme song is very like mambo, kind of fun. And I'm going to give it credit because it's doing the New York mambo thing at least 3 years before Sex and the City did it.
It did have a very Sex and the City like sound to it.
And I looked it up because I was like, oh, are they just ripping this off? Because they're like, anything we can do, we'll do the Sex and the City song. But it was like, no, it actually was beforehand.
Wow.
So I'm going to give them credit on that one. I understand why I might have enjoyed this show or continue to enjoy this show. What would you ladies say is in this for you ladies to enjoy? The Ernest Borgnine character is really satisfying your...
I watched the show too, but I feel like I was swept up by the hype of the promotional campaign for it. I was sold immediately. Right. I was like, I'm watching it. Yes.
It's on between 2 other things I watch. I'll watch it.
Yeah, exactly. You got me. And I remember like enjoying it. But I also remember sort of falling off like almost immediately as well. So like, I don't think I was an avid watcher of the show.
Did you guys see the Mariska Hargitay cameo at the end?
Was that really her?
I mean, I didn't look it up.
No, she's confident. In several. I guess she's in several episodes in the second season.
So is this also the Law and Order SVU universe?
No.
This is her before she becomes a detective.
So let me just say that Ming-Na Wen was also on ER. Oh. She was on ER, and then left ER to star on The Single Guy. That didn't go very well, and then she came back to ER like a couple years later, and then was on it for like 5 years.
I mean, I'm hearing just 8 years of must-see TV for her.
That's right. So she did okay, and then Mariska Hargitay was also a recurring player. Maybe not a recurring player, but like had multiple episodes on ER as well. There's a lot of people that's one of the things you would enjoy, Rachel, about ER is just how many different people come in and out.
Like a really are.
Yes, like a really are.
What did I get out of the show? I think I probably would have just watched anything that was enjoyable that was set in New York. I mean, I was obsessed with life in New York. I mean, every TV show I watched was set in New York. I mean,
that's because they all were. They were pretty lazy, except for
I know.
Home Improvement.
Well, they're most shows are either in some nameless place, or they're specifically in New York.
Or it's a family show that's somewhere in the Midwest. You know, like it's a family. The main set is a living room. But if you're young and fun, it's in New York.
The Big Apple. The
Big Apple, because there's so much that can happen to you in New York.
I was like, this show could be on CBS now. It would
have
a more diverse cast, but like it doesn't. It feels like what current sitcoms look like.
I mean, there's almost no multi-camera sitcoms anymore. I mean, there's none on. I'm trying to imagine a show like this on.
Not on NBC, but CBS has a couple.
CBS still does that.
No, the reason why I'm actually racking my brain to think what's like a new comedy that I watched and I liked, because I was on a Reddit page for television and I was talking shit about The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel and how much I hated it. And the person was like, "Well, what comedies do you like?" And I was like, and I couldn't think of like any straight comedy since Kimmy Schmidt that I thought was good.
Schitt's Creek.
This could be a whole other podcast. But
oh, really?
I'm gonna put a vote in for Ted Lasso.
Oh, I haven't watched that yet, and I've heard so much.
It was the best.
Yeah,
it's on Apple TV. You got to get it. We got a free year of it, which is why we watched it. But it's Jason Sudeikis, and it's a kind of a silly setup, but man, it's just the feel good show of the year, and it's like disarmingly nice, but also like really funny and silly.
Yeah, that's on my list. Even though it's about football, correct?
It's
or
not
like
really.
Soccer, or
it's about soccer, but barely. I mean, it's just he's a coach, but it's not really about soccer.
I'm feeling a deep shame right now that you guys are aware of a show that I've never heard of.
You've never heard of Ted Lasso?
I have never heard of this.
This is a show that
Can we just end the podcast now? I'm depressed.
Heard rumblings. People keep talking about it, and I'm like, all right, I gotta check out that show. I also liked The Good Place. You know, there's been comedies.
Okay, The Good Place was good. The last season, I mean, I have a severe death anxiety, so that last season kind of threw me for a loop. But
yeah, sure.
I mean, all of it threw me for a loop, but.
So I do think that there have been.
But I would say that The Good Place and Schitt's Creek have a similar problem, which is that they, at a certain point, they decide to sacrifice humor in exchange for goodwill and like morality, or like they're like, we just want to have all these people. We want to have everyone like the characters, so they just like want to make all the characters likable and have them all grow and have all this character growth, and then it's not as funny anymore.
That definitely happened in like the later seasons of The Office, where you're like, wait. Like all of these people are now friends with each other. That's not the point.
The Office was set in Scranton, and I just kind of remember how at the end of The Office, Jim inexplicably gets like his dream job in New York or something, and like they move, and I'm like, who gets out of Scranton? Like who, after having 2 kids and being married and working at a paper company for 15 years, like suddenly gets out of Scranton and moves to New York and has some like amazing career. And that's what happened at the end of that show. Was like he fulfilled his dream, and he fulfilled his dream, and he fulfilled his dream, and that's what happened in Schitt's Creek. They each individually fulfilled all their dreams, and it made me sick. Nobody fulfills their dreams.
You might not like Ted Lasso.
Yeah.
But going back to the single guy, which
we gotta
we're all
get back
here
to
for.
Yeah.
That's something that it lacks, is that there's no edge.
But I think part of what keeps most shows, I mean, thinking of like 30 Rock and Seinfeld, they have multiple plot lines going at once. In Single Guy, it's like usually 1.5. Like there's one thing happening, and then there's like something small percolating in the background.
What are you talking about? In the Maureen McCormick episode, they had a whole huge thing about how Olivia Diabo is having work done in her apartment, but it sounds like she's getting nailed by all these guys.
See, I thought that was the same guy in every scene, and then in the end, it turned out that it was different guys.
It was such a lazy little dumb joke that like you could just clear this up.
They just stuck with it. They were like, we're gonna bring this up like 4 times.
Yeah.
And also, like, what does he care?
But maybe
I mean-
maybe Seinfeld was unique in that it had so many plots going at once. I mean, they would have
They don't have like
sometimes
four.
plots. Yeah,
I mean, yeah,
3 or 4.
Seinfeld was super unique, and then everyone tried to do it, and it
Right.
didn't do it well.
I think the thing about that was so great about Seinfeld is that they'd have these multiple plots, like a bunch of plots going, and they would all kind of connect back to each other. You know, there'd be something like that would happen that would connect the two or something, or like the three plots.
Yeah, for
This,
sure.
so like, I think that's what something that was sort of like lacking in The Single Guy. Like, okay, so, you know, Jonathan's set up on this date with Olivia de Alba, and she's a name dropper. She's annoying. He doesn't like her. And then they're leaving, and then they decide to go on a date anyway, kind of out of spite to each other. Like, they both don't like each other. And then they're like, they sort of dare each other to go on like a date. And then they go to, you know, like bar where Papa Hemingway like had a Rob Roy with her grandpa. And when they get there, the bar has burned down. Like, it's in the middle of burning down.
Yeah.
If that was Seinfeld, the reason that bar had burned down
Because Kramer threw a lit match into the window.
Yes, because something Kramer had been doing the rest of the episode finally like came to, you know what I'm saying?
That's a good point. And I guess as we're saying there's no edge, it tried to be a little cynical with like, oh, the bar burned down. And then the end of the episode, the tag is that the woman of his dreams leaves the voicemail, but then the tape runs out and she can't finish giving her number. So he's like, oh, it's just, yeah, nothing goes the way it's supposed to. I didn't get to watch my fight.
Right.
I didn't get any paella.
I didn't get any of Manny's classic paella.
Yeah, but you're right. It's true. They would have all woven together. Although, to be fair, Seinfeld's pilot episode wasn't as genius as it would become later.
I mean, Friends also had multiple plot threads going at once, too.
Seinfeld described, like Jerry Seinfeld described Friends as Seinfeld with better looking people. And that's sort of how I felt about The Single Guy, kind of. It was just like, oh, I could not get over how in the first episode how much his apartment looked like Jerry's apartment.
It's a carbon copy of Jerry's.
It's just like,
it's the same. I was obsessing over that when I watched the second episode, because I was just like, yep, the refrigerators and it's the same floor plan.
Like, I actually wonder if they had some notes from some NBC execs that were like, if someone tunes in early, they should think they're watching Seinfeld.
I mean, I feel like I walked into this with this like really great memory of The Single Guy and feeling like it just got shafted, and now I'm like, oh, I guess it deserved to be shafted.
I remember in real time being actually pretty disappointed that it was getting canceled, even though I definitely don't remember watching that last episode where he gets married.
Right.
So maybe I'm part of the problem.
What is a show that you remember being upset that it was canceled? Do either of you have one?
I have one specifically. Talk about the TV guide. As you know, Rachel, I'm a huge Saved by the Bell fan, and I followed those guys on to college. Saved by the Bell, the college years, and I loved the college years. And I remember so well going at Tuesday at 8 o'clock to watch the next episode, and it just wasn't there. And I was like, that's weird. And I checked the TV guide. So I went back the next week at 8 o'clock. Not on. I was like,
what channel was it on? It was
NBC.
on network.
NBC.
Really?
I was like, oh man, they must be on this really long hiatus. This is weird. I mean, and I don't know how long it was until I just finally.
You just gave up. Yeah.
Well, there was no internet. It was just like, it's just being beamed in through the mother channel. I'll just watch it or not. I had no power.
You could call the Associated Press and have them
Well,
find it.
that is the thing. Like, as a kid, you're not really aware. You're not getting the press releases like that these shows have been canceled or whatever. So you're just like, well, like even for a popular show, they'd have 3 new episodes in a month and then a rerun episode. I also had this memory of there'd be shows that I would only see in rerun, and I would it's just like, I've only ever seen this show in reruns, and it's always the same rerun. How does that happen? Like,
it's always
I've
the
seen
same
this
episode.
This is the one episode I've seen, and I've seen it 4 times.
there's a show that's on our list for later on. I don't know how far down it is, but it was something that I'm convinced I was the only person in our entire high school who was watching this show, and I was very distraught when it was canceled. It was Men Behaving Badly.
So that Men Behaving Badly had this same time slot. So like The Single Guy, when it got canceled, they filled it in with Men Behaving Badly. That also didn't go, and then they finally ended up with Suddenly Susan.
Suddenly Susan was Brooke Shields. Yeah, that one was on for a while. And then also, though, there was Caroline in the City.
Right.
Which Jonathan Silverman did a guest appearance on.
That's right, yes.
As his character from Single Guy.
I watched a fair amount of Caroline in the City, but like not on purpose. I feel like it was just always on TV.
Before we get to the end, I have a few more facts for you.
Okay.
So Olivia Dabo, her dad is Mike Dabo, who was the vocalist for Man for Man, which, you know, you're a musician.
There she was, just a walking down the street.
That's right. And also, Rachel, Mike Diabo did King Herod in the original recording of Jesus Christ Superstar. Oh, I also just wanted to say, I was very, the second episode that we watched, I was really shocked and pleased to see Rodney Dangerfield.
Oh, right. Cameo.
That was another thing where I was like, who is this for except for me? It's just like a Thin Man joke and then Rodney Dangerfield. So
I think it was of its time, and your sensibilities have stayed on point.
Correct. Maybe, I don't know. I don't know, like Joey Slotnick's trying to earn money so that he can make more money than his wife because he feels emasculated by earning less money. And so he's like, his get rich quick scheme is to sell counterfeit concert tees, but it's for a Rodney Dangerfield concert.
And they're left over from his uncle's birthday party or something.
And his uncle looks like Rodney Dangerfield.
So it was supposed to actually be a photo of his uncle who's identical to Rodney Dangerfield.
Or
Correct.
I thought it was just we got these ones made that looked like Rodney Dangerfield for my uncle. Either way, I was like, where are you storing all of these?
It was very sweaty. It just didn't.
It was a sad moment.
I don't feel
guy.
like either of these episodes were good vehicles for Joey Slotnick. I think that he must have had more to give, and these just weren't.
I gotta say, thinking back on it, he's definitely, you can see him trying hard, but
yeah,
I enjoy him. He's not George Costanza, but it's it's all working. The show works for me.
I thought he was likable. I definitely thought he was likable. He wasn't annoying or anything.
I think he's supposed to be annoying.
He doesn't really carry that off. I feel like the show just suffers from just not having enough zip, or there's not anything. It's just a little bland all over. The premises are a little feel a little done. You're like, oh, this seems like something that someone else has done better somewhere else.
Okay, well, this has been completely disillusioning for me, but.
What happened?
Oh.
What?
We ruined the show for you?
Did we?
Are you crying?
Oh, no, Rachel.
If you think this can make me cry.
What happened? Hold on. You came into this episode ready to love it, and we bashed it?
Did we convince you? Did we turn you? Oh, no.
I don't want to put in those words. I mean... No, nothing you said was wrong. I'm saying that you've lifted the veil, and now I'm realizing that it was just middling. I think that this whole podcast is actually confusing me because I like just remembering the shows and my memory of the shows, and just the fact that I remember them was enough. And now I've got to go back and actually analyze them. And now, think about how much time I spent watching them when I could have been learning a skill.
Oh wow, am I on the last episode of this podcast?
Yeah, she's having a crisis right now, an existential crisis, and it's that was the last episode they ever recorded.
Sorry, I have one more. Eric, do you remember when in Mr. Lloyd's class we had to do a media literacy assignment, and you had to pick a time slot and watch the show and record what the commercials were, and you were supposed to kind of figure out what the audience was for that show based on the commercials. So my sister was home last weekend and she found her media literacy report of the shows that she watched. I did the Bonnie Hunt show.
Ooh.
And it got canceled after 3 episodes. So then I was stuck watching whatever was in that time slot, which was different things every week for the whole semester. And I was so pissed because I couldn't get a handle on what it was at all because it was always a different show. And I was wondering if you remembered what you watched.
I have no idea. But I'm going to do my best Olivia Diabo and do a little name dropping here that in the early days of my music career, I was on the Bonnie Hunt talk show. And I got to play a song on there. And then I said to her how much I liked the movie Return to Me.
I do like that
jaw
movie.
like hit the floor. Like, you're on this show and you've heard of the movie I directed? So that was my big Bonnie Hunt story.
Return to Me is good.
Really good.
Yeah. It's got David Duchovny in it and Minnie Driver, and it's about love and heart transplants.
Okay, Sarah watched Brimstone, which I'm guessing was some show about the devil.
No, really, I was gonna say like a Western.
Or yeah.
And then the same thing happened. The same thing happened to her, where she started watching Brimstone and it was canceled, and then it was different shows all the time.
Yeah, right. Where they just plugged crap in there and like see if something fit. But also like just knowing how the TV world works now, they didn't have anything to air. They were like, oh man, we pulled the plug on that crappy show, and now we don't have anything to put there.
Can you believe though that there are people out there who were born like after 9/11?
Can't believe it.
No, I can't. Nope. I mean.
Hard stop on that statement.
Sounds like an inside job to me.
that have seen all of Friends.
Yeah.
That, like, watch Friends in their leisure time.
Yeah, that's like how we used to watch the Brady Bunch.
In a world where like you could have sat down and watched Brady Bunch for 20 hours, I guess. Maybe.
A fun show is still a fun show, I think. So like, I'd watch the Brady Bunch now if I could get it on something. I don't know. I got to look.
Yeah, would you? I don't know.
I watched a lot of things that were before my. I mean, that's half of what reruns were shows that weren't on anymore.
But these people are watching Friends by choice.
Yeah, they are, and they are standing it. Like they are loving it.
Yeah.
I mean, I watched a lot of Beverly Hillbillies and Gilligan's Island because there was this one summer when our house was being renovated and we were stuck in the spare room watching the black and white TV, and I just watched so much of those shows.
You didn't really like get out much. Sunlight and all that.
No.
I mean, what?
That's not important.
If you're a teenager and you're not good at a sport, how do you get exercise? Play tag? Should I have been playing tag?
No.
You could do what I've done, which is we got a treadmill for our basement and like rigged up a TV with a DVD player, and so I've been rewatching Freaks and Geeks while walking on the treadmill.
My insight on Freaks and Geeks is that the last time I rewatched it, there have almost no night scenes, and I wondered if they were just saving money by only shooting during the day. Okay,
that is a saving money.
Like there's a scene where they're going to bed, and it's like the Los Angeles sun is bright overhead.
Yeah, no, that was
like, what's going on?
They also have
that just came onto Hulu or something. It's on one of the streaming.
It did. So yeah, so I'm kind of waiting for like, is that going to happen with Freaks and Geeks? Because sometimes like this show will get loaded onto Netflix or Hulu, and then all of a sudden it's like in the public consciousness again. So
it's already happening, and it's happening with Pretend It's a City with Fran Lebowitz, and all the kids are watching it, and they're ordering her books.
They're all watching Fran Lebowitz,
and they're watching her TikTok channel. But the most interesting thing about her is that she doesn't own a computer
or a phone.
So what does she do?
She has a landline, I guess. I mean, imagine
that's just rude in 2021.
I know.
I mean, I'm trying to think of how you would even like live your life without just having an email account or something. But
maybe she doesn't have a computer.
I mean, she could probably have a personal assistant, right, who would do that for her.
Well, that's some rare air, though. Oh, I don't have a computer. I just have a person who does it for me.
Also, like, all right, Fran, like, that's some. Is it writer's block, or you just don't have a thing to write on anymore? You're like, I can't write. I can't.
Literally don't know how to.
Literally don't know how to anymore. So that is over. That part of my life is gone.
She said she was just too busy going to parties, and that's why she couldn't write anymore.
I mean, she could write now.
Same problem over here.
Yeah, I know.
I feel like it's getting late. So
Yes. Anyway, so next week we're going to be talking about The Pretender.
Yes.
Which we're both very excited about. Like, legitimately.
Is it the pilot of it?
It's the pilot, and we're watching it on Daily Motion.
Okay. Let's say goodbye. Thanks for
say
coming,
goodbye.
Eric. This was really fun.
Thank you, Eric. Thank you for talking about The Single Guy.
Thanks for having me. This was great.
Right.
This has been Sliders and Wings with Val and Rachel. You can email us at slidersandwings@gmail.com.
That's right.
Okay. No one has yet, but it might still happen. We'll see.
Right. One day someone might email us. So I've been sitting by the computer waiting.
Right, bye.
Bye, everyone.